The stars above New Sol Colony burned bright against the endless black of space. Admiral Kim Hu Yanwu stood at the wide windows of the defense station, watching cargo ships move slowly between the planets. It was a peaceful Tuesday morning. In the year 2387, humanity had spread across 43 different star systems. Building homes and cities on dozens of worlds, everything changed in a single moment. The first sign was the silence. All the radio chatter from the shipping lanes just stopped. The steady hum of communications that filled the station every day went quiet. Then the sensors started screaming warnings. Admiral, Captain Lee Sujin's voice cracked with fear. Unknown. Contacts appearing throughout the system. They're everywhere. Hyan Wu turned from the window and saw something that made his blood freeze. Massive ships were materializing out of nothing above every human world, not just in their system, but everywhere humans lived. The emergency channels filled with identical reports from colonies, light years away. The ships were like nothing humans had ever seen. They looked like enormous crystals floating in space, their surfaces shifting and changing with colors that hurt to look at directly. Each one was bigger than a city, and they moved without any visible engines or thrust. "Sir, they're not responding to our hails," reported Lieutenant Park from the communications station. "But they're doing something to our satellites." The defense platforms around Earth just went dark. Dr. Park Janae, the station's chief scientist, stared at her readings with wide eyes. "The quantum signatures are impossible. These ships shouldn't be able to exist. The physics don't work." The voice came. The voice came from everywhere at once, not through the speakers of the radio, but inside everyone's head. The galaxy heard the same words at the same moment, spoken in a tone that was both beautiful and terrifying. People of the young species called humanity. The main screen flickered and showed a figure that made everyone step backward. It was tall and thin, made of pure light, wrapped in flowing robes that seemed to be cut from the fabric of space itself. Its face was perfect and horrible at the same time, changing between human features and something completely alien. "We are the Ascended. For 10 million years, we have guided the growth of lesser species toward a better existence. We have watched you spread among the stars with your crude machines in violent ways." Captain Lee gripped her weapon, even though she knew it would be useless. "What do they want?" the being continued as if it had heard her thoughts. "We offer you the same gift we have given to 738 species before you. Put down your weapons. Destroy your war machines. Kneel before those who are greater than you, and accept the honor of serving in our divine empire." Images flashed on the screen showing other alien species. They were all kneeling, their heads bowed, working in vast factories and farms under the watchful eyes of more energy beings. "These species found wisdom in our guidance. They live in peace now, free from the burden of making their own choices. They serve a higher purpose." Admiral Hyanwu felt anger rising in his chest. "They're slaves. You will surrender all weapons and technology," the being continued. "You will abandon your military forces and your governments. In return, you will be allowed to exist under our protection. You will work for the good of the Empire, and you will worship us as your gods." The image changed to show barren worlds with smooth glass surfaces where nothing could grow. These are the worlds of species who chose poorly. They believed they could resist the natural order. They were wrong. Dr. Park's hands shook as she studied the energy readings. "Admiral, they just demonstrated their power on Earth. They reached out and turned off our most advanced defense systems like they were light switches. They rewrote the quantum cores from here, across interstellar space." The being's voice filled their minds again. "You have 7 of your solar days to make the correct choice. When the time ends, those who have accepted wisdom will be spared. Those who cling to foolish pride will join the silent worlds." The crystal ships moved away from the planets, positioning themselves at the edge of each system, close enough to watch everything, far enough away to seem unreachable. The message was clear. Resistance was futile. As the transmission ended, the command center erupted in voices. Officers shouted orders, scientists argued about readings, and communication specialists tried desperately to contact other human worlds. Admiral Sujin said quietly, "What are our orders?" Ayanwu looked around. At his crew? These were good people, brave people who had joined the fleet to protect humanity's future among the stars. Now they faced beings who claimed to be gods, who had the power to turn entire worlds into glass. "Get me a connection to Earth Command," he said firmly, "and send word to every human colony, every ship, every outpost. Tell them we need to talk, and we need to decide together." "What are we going to tell them, sir?" asked Dr. Park. The Admiral looked back at the window where the alien ships waited like patient predators. "We're going to decide if humanity will stand or kneel. And we're going to decide together." The 7-day countdown had begun. The arguing had not stopped for 6 days. In meeting rooms across the galaxy, human leaders shouted at each other, while the crystal ships waited at the edge of their systems like hungry wolves. Prime Minister Choi Minho sat at the head of the Emergency Council. On Earth, his face tired from days without sleep. "We have to be smart about this," he said for the 100th time. "These beings have existed for millions of years. They have destroyed entire worlds. Maybe we can find some middle ground." Middle ground. Admiral Kim Han-woo's voice came through the communication link from his ship. "They want us to throw away our weapons and bow down like dogs? There is no middle ground." General Lim Eugene, coordinating military forces across 17 worlds, slammed her hand on the table. "Look at what they showed us. Those other species working in their factories, never looking up, never thinking for themselves. Life, that's just slow death." Dr. O. Changman, the scientist, tried to stay calm. "But if we fight them, we all die. They turned off our best weapons like they were toys. How do we fight beings made of pure energy?" Commander Yoon Jamin had fought pirates in the outer systems for 10 years. He knew the look of a predator when he saw one. "I've seen this before, just on a smaller scale. They're bullies." "This is different," Choi argued. "These aren't pirates with stolen ships. These are beings who call themselves gods." "Gods don't need to make threats," Yoon replied quietly. On the 7th day, something unexpected happened. Instead of waiting for the governments to decide, ordinary humans began making their own choice. Factory workers on Mars colony sent a message: "We will not kneel." Farmers on New Texas followed with the same words. The ship crews, miners, teachers, and doctors across 43 star systems spoke with one voice. The final answer came not from any president or prime minister, but from humanity itself. Every human settlement broadcast the same simple word on all frequencies: no. The ascended response was immediate and terrifying. Energy beams fell from the crystal ships like lightning from an angry sky. Military bases on a dozen worlds simply vanished, turned to glass and smoke in seconds. The beings expected panic, expected surrender, expected the usual pattern they had seen 700 times before. Instead, they got Captain Song Hai-1. She commanded a small patrol fleet near Jupiter when the attacks began. 18 ships against vessels the size of cities. Any reasonable person would have run or tried to negotiate. Song was not feeling reasonable. "All ships attack formation," she ordered calmly. "Target the largest vessel, full speed." "Captain," her second officer stammered, "we can't win this fight." "Winning isn't the point," Song replied. "Fighting is the point." The human ships dove toward the crystal vessel like angry insects attacking a giant. Their weapons barely scratched the alien hull, but something strange happened. The energy beings inside the ship flickered, just for a moment, like candle flames in the wind. The battle was short and brutal. One by one, the human ships were destroyed by weapons that bent space itself. But they kept fighting, kept attacking. Even when their hulls were breaking apart around them, Captain Kim Tae-soon rammed his ship directly into the crystal hull, screaming into his radio, "Remember this? Remember that humans don't quit." Lieutenant Kong So-young, flying a tiny fighter craft, noticed something important in those final moments. Every time her targeting computer locked onto one of the energy beings, they seemed to dim slightly. Every time she dove at them with no fear in her heart, they moved a little slower. They could feel fear. The gods were afraid. Across the galaxy, similar battles erupted. Human forces that should have been easily crushed fought with a fury that confused their enemies. Ships that should have retreated charged straight into the alien formations. Soldiers who should have surrendered kept firing until their weapons melted. On the bridge of his command ship, the first voice communicated with his subordinates. "This behavior pattern is not in our records. The small vessels continue attacking, even when victory is impossible. They are not acting rationally. Perhaps they do not understand the hopelessness of their situation," suggested another Ascended. "No," the first voice replied, watching as another human ship exploded against their hull while its crew sang battle songs. "They understand perfectly. They simply do not care." For the first time in 10 million years, the Ascended felt something they had forgotten existed. Not the worship they demanded, not the fear they expected, but something else entirely. Something that made their energy forms flicker with uncertainty. The humans were not acting like any species they had conquered before. When threatened with death, they became more dangerous, not less. When faced with impossible odds, they attacked harder, not softer. The first voice watched as human reinforcements arrived to continue the hopeless battle. And for the first time in eons, he wondered if they had made a mistake. The war had begun. And the gods were learning that some species refused to kneel, no matter what the cost. Dr. O'Changman had never wanted to be a soldier. He preferred numbers and equations to bullets and battles. But the war had changed everyone. And now he worked in a secret laboratory buried deep under the moon's surface, trying to understand how to kill gods. The fragments of Ascended technology, scattered across his workbench, looked like pieces of broken starlight. Each piece hummed with energy that made his instruments go crazy. He'd been studying them for 3 months, ever since the first battles began. "I think I understand now," he said into his communication device, speaking to the military leaders hiding in bunkers across the solar system. "Their power isn't magic. It's science we don't understand yet." General Lim Yuzhin's voice crackled through the speakers. "Can you explain it in simple words, Doctor? We're soldiers, not scientists." Changman picked up one of the glowing fragments. "They manipulate the basic forces that hold atoms together. And their ships amplify this power like a lens focusing sunlight. But here's the important part. Their energy forms are held together by their absolute belief that they are superior to everyone else." "What does that mean?" asked Commander Yoon Jamin. "It means doubt makes them weaker. Every time we surprise them, every time we do something they think is impossible, they become less stable. Their own confidence is part of their power source." This discovery changed everything. Human forces began developing new tactics designed specifically to create confusion and doubt in their enemies. Instead of trying to outfight the Ascended with superior weapons, they would outthink them with superior determination. Sergeant Pak Taeho was the first to test the new approach. He led a squad of 20 soldiers in an assault on a mining station that the Ascended had captured. The energy beings inside expected the humans to attack from a distance with their biggest guns. Instead, Pak and his men charged straight at them with nothing but rifles and angry hearts. "For Earth," Pak screamed as he ran directly at a being made of pure light. "For every human who won't bow down." The Ascended Defender raised its hand to destroy the foolish human, but something went wrong. Its form flickered and wavered. The creature had never faced an enemy who showed no fear, who ran toward certain death while laughing. Pak's rifle shouldn't have been able to hurt an energy being. But as the bullets passed through the flickering form, the Ascended screamed, a sound like tearing metal that made everyone's ears ring. It collapsed, its light scattering like broken glass. "Did you see that?" shouted Private Lee Min-jin. "It's bleeding light." The news spread through the human forces like wildfire. The gods could be hurt. The gods could die. Engineer Shinbor worked day and night in her workshop, building devices she called quantum scramblers. They were simple machines that did one thing. They created chaos in the energy fields that the Ascended use for their power. "If they want to play God," she muttered, while welding circuits together, "let's make them do it the hard way." The scramblers were first used during the Battle of Titan. Colonel Dean Min-sik led a combined attack, using the new devices to strip away the enemy's advantages. For the first time since the war began, humans and Ascended fought as equals. Crystal ship hung in space above Titan's orange clouds, its hull glowing with deadly energy. Inside, 50 ascended warriors prepared to destroy the approaching human fleet. They had done this countless times before with countless species, but as the human ships got closer, their quantum scramblers activated. Suddenly, the ascended found their powers failing. Energy blasts that should have destroyed entire ships barely scratched the hull. Shields that should have been impenetrable flickered and failed. "What is happening?" the ship's commander demanded. "Why are our weapons not functioning?" The answer came in the form of human marines cutting through the hull with simple plasma. Torches they poured into the ship like water through a broken dam, their faces painted with war colors, their voices raised in battle songs. The Ascended had never fought hand-to-hand combat before. They were creatures of pure energy, used to destroying enemies from a distance. Now they faced humans with knives and determination, and they discovered something terrifying. They could lose Lieutenant. Colonel An Dong-hyuk led the assault team that reached the ship's core. He found the Ascended commander cowering behind a control panel, its light form dim and stuttering with fear. "Please," the being whispered into his mind. "We can negotiate. We can find an arrangement that benefits both species." An looked at the creature that had demanded worship, that had threatened to turn human worlds into glass, and he smiled without humor. "You had your chance to negotiate. You chose to demand surrender instead." The human forces captured the ship intact, along with 12 Ascended prisoners. For the first time in 10 million years, the self-proclaimed gods were captured by their intended victims. Dr. Changman studied the prisoners with fascination. Without their technology and their absolute confidence, they seemed smaller somehow, less divine. They were just another species that had gotten too proud for their own good. "The age of gods is ending," he wrote in his report that night. "Humanity is teaching the galaxy something new, that no one has to kneel to anyone else, no matter how powerful they claim to be." The war was far from over, but the balance had shifted. The hunters had become the hunted. Dr. Beek Sujen stared at the captured Ascended technology with tired eyes. She had not slept properly in weeks, but the breakthrough was finally within reach. The energy readings from the prisoners showed something incredible, a weakness that could end the war. "Their energy forms have a specific frequency," she explained to the Emergency Science Council through her computer screen. "Like a radio signal, every Ascended vibrates at exactly the same rate. If we can create the opposite frequency," she paused, understanding what her discovery meant, "we can cancel them out completely, make them stop existing." Admiral An Dong-hyuk, now commanding the reformed human fleet, watched the first test of the new weapon. 3 months later, the null cannon looked like any other ship weapon, but it fired something entirely different, pure cancellation energy. The target was a small Ascended. It's a patrol ship in the Kepler system. One moment it was, there glowing with alien power. The next moment, it simply was not. No explosion, no debris, no trace that it had ever existed at all. "Holy stars," whispered Captain Ro Yunji from her position at the weapons console. "We just erased a god from reality." The psychological impact was immediate and devastating. News of the weapon spread through both human and alien networks within hours. For the first time in their long existence, the Ascended faced something that could not just defeat them, but completely destroy them. The effect on their slave species was even more dramatic. The Zephyrian Collective, enslaved for 3,000 years, suddenly refused to build more ships for their masters. The Silicon Communes declared independence. Their hive minds no longer willing to serve beings they now saw as merely powerful, not divine. "The natural order is breaking." The first voice transmitted to his fellow Ascended in emergency session. "The slave species are rebelling. They no longer fear us as they should." "It is the humans," replied another voice. "Their defiance spreads like a disease. They've shown the others that gods can be killed." The Ascended made a desperate decision. They began calling upon all their servant races for military support, demanding that armies of enslaved beings fight against humanity. To their shock and horror, many simply refused. Captain Kim Hae-won received the strangest message of her career while patrolling near the Vega system. It came from a Zephyrian factory ship, one of the species that had served the Ascended for millennia. Its human vessel, This is Worker Unit Designation 7742. We offer assistance against the false gods. We have weapons, we have ships, we want freedom. Similar messages came from dozens of other species. The galaxy's slaves were rising up, inspired by humanity's example. The Ascended Empire, built over 10 million years, began crumbling in a matter of months. Fleet Admiral Wan Ji-ho led the decisive assault on the main Ascended base in the Vega system. His battle group included not just human ships, but vessels from 20 different alien species, all united by one simple desire to be free. This is for every species that was forced to kneel, Wan announced as his fleet approached the massive Crystal Fortress. Today we end the age of false gods. The battle was unlike anything in galactic history. Instead of one species fighting another, it was freedom fighting slavery, independence fighting oppression. The Ascended threw everything they had at the combined fleet: weapons that twisted space, defenses that existed in multiple dimensions, warriors whose very presence had once driven entire armies mad with terror. But the Alliance forces had something the Ascended had never faced before: hope backed by proof that victory was possible. Human null cannons erased enemy ships from existence while alien allies provided covering fire and tactical support. Commander Nam Yu-young piloted her reconnaissance ship through the chaos of battle, watching as Ascended forces began doing something unprecedented. They started retreating. Admiral Wan, she reported over the communication network, the enemy is pulling back. Energy signatures are fleeing toward their core systems. They're running, one replied with satisfaction. The gods are running away. The victory at Vega was complete. The Ascended lost their primary staging area, thousands of their warriors, and most importantly, their reputation for invincibility. Word spread across the galaxy that the self-proclaimed gods had turned and fled when faced with determined resistance. But one knew the war was not over. The enemy was retreating to their home system, the heart of their empire. There they would make their final stand, using every weapon and power they possessed. Send word to all human fleets, he ordered, and to our new allies. We're going to finish this once and for all. Engineer Shin Bu-ra, now promoted to chief weapons designer, worked frantically to improve the null cannons. Make them bigger, she told her team. Make them stronger. When we reach their home system, I want to be able to erase their entire civilization if we have to. The final battle was coming. Humanity and its allies would face the Ascended in their own stronghold, surrounded by 10 million years of accumulated power and technology. But the humans had something more powerful than any weapon. They had shown the galaxy that freedom was possible. The god-killers were coming home. The Ascended home system was the most beautiful and terrible sight in the galaxy. A massive artificial structure wrapped around a dying red star like a glowing shell, larger than most planets and powered by the star's own burning heart. Billions of energy beings had lived here for millions of years, safe in their belief that no lesser species could ever reach them. Admiral Kim Ho-en-woo stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the enormous construct through the viewing screen. Around him floated the largest fleet ever assembled, not just human ships, but vessels from 40 different species that had thrown off their chains. All of them had come to witness the end of the Age of Gods. How many of them are in there? Asked General Hong Seo-chin, who would lead the ground assault teams. Our sensors show energy signatures in the billions, replied Dr. Chongmin, now serving as the fleet's science advisor. Every Ascended in the galaxy has retreated to this fortress. Good, Hyen-woo said quietly. Then we can finish this in one battle. The approach to the construct was a nightmare of defensive weapons. Energy beams that could tear apart moons lashed out at the approaching fleet. Shields that existed in 11 dimensions tried to crush the attacking ships like insects. Weapons that turned matter into pure energy fired constantly from thousands of gun ports. But the Alliance fleet had learned to fight impossible odds. Human pilots flew through gaps in the defenses that should not have existed. Alien allies provided covering fire with weapons designed specifically to hurt energy beings. The null cannons fired again and again, erasing entire sections of the construct from reality. Corporal Yu Hyansun led his assault squad through a breach in the construct's hull. The corridors inside were like walking through a crystal cathedral, all flowing curves and impossible architecture. But Yu and his soldiers were no longer impressed by alien wonders. "Stay together," he ordered his men. "Remember, they bleed light, just like everything else." The defenders they met were not the confident gods who had first appeared above human worlds. These ascended flickered with uncertainty, their forms dim and unstable. They had never fought in their own home before, had never faced enemies who showed no fear of their divine power. "Please," one of them whispered into Yu's mind as his squad advanced. "We can end this conflict. We can negotiate terms that benefit all species." Yu raised his null field generator, a weapon that would erase the being from existence. You had your chance to negotiate. You chose to demand worship instead. The fighting was brutal and desperate. The Ascended used every weapon they had developed over 10 million years. They twisted reality itself, summoned creatures from other dimensions, and unleashed powers that had destroyed entire civilizations. But humanity and its allies kept advancing. They had learned that determination could overcome superior technology, that unity could defeat individual power, that freedom was worth any price. The final confrontation took place in the construct's core chamber, a vast space at the heart of the artificial world. Admiral Hyanwu entered with a small team, their null field generators humming with deadly energy. The first voice waited for them there, his form towering and magnificent, surrounded by the last of his most powerful followers. But even he seemed smaller now, less divine, more desperate. "Enough of this madness," the ancient being transmitted to Hyanwu's mind. "We offer you terms. Take your worlds, keep your weapons, live as you choose. Only stop this rebellion and allow the natural order to continue with the other species." Hyanwu looked up at the being who had once demanded humanity's surrender and worship. Around him, his soldiers kept their weapons ready, their faces hard with determination. "You still don't understand," the Admiral said aloud, his words echoing through the vast chamber. "We didn't fight you just to save ourselves. We fought you because no thinking being should have to kneel to anyone else. The age of your natural order is over." The first voice's form flickered with something that might have been fear. "You cannot free them all. There are thousands of species across the galaxy. You cannot fight every battle." "We don't have to," replied General Hong, stepping forward with his own weapon raised. "We just had to show them it was possible. The rest they can do themselves." The battle in the core chamber was brief, but decisive. The last of the Ascended leadership fell to weapons that turned their own energy against them. The first voice, ruler of a 10-million-year empire, dissolved into scattered light that faded like morning mist with their leaders gone. The remaining Ascended scattered to the far edges of the galaxy. Some fled to dimensions beyond normal space. Others tried to hide among primitive species that had never heard of their empire. All of them were reduced from gods to refugees. Admiral Hyanwu stood in the ruins of the construct's control center and sent a message that reached every corner of the galaxy. The age of forced worship is over. No species needs to kneel to any other. Freedom is the right of all thinking beings. The response was immediate. Across thousands of worlds, slave species declared their independence. The Zephyrian collective dismantled their factory ships and began building homes for their children. The Silicon Commune spread the word to other hive minds that gods were just bullies with better weapons. The Free Worlds Alliance was born from the ashes of the Ascended Empire. United by one simple principle: no one kneels to anyone in the depths of space. Other ancient powers watched nervously as humanity's message spread through quantum networks and hyperspace communications. The galaxy had learned a new lesson, taught by a species that refused to surrender. If you want to be worshipped, you better make sure the humans never find you.